They said humanity was too young, too reckless, too primitive to join the galactic racing circuit. For 3 centuries, the greatest pilots in known space had pushed the boundaries of physics itself, their ships powered by exotic matter engines that could bend reality. The Zephyrians with their crystalline reflexes, the Korathi with their 4-dimensional thinking, the ancient ethereals who existed partially outside normal spacetime, these were the masters of velocity, the gods of the void. Then came Lieutenant Sarah Chen, fresh out of the Terran Space Academy, flying a ship that looked like it belonged in a museum. While alien racers piloted sleek vessels powered by compressed dark energy and quantum flux cores, Sarah's craft was a patchwork of human engineering, magnetic field manipulators, and something no other species had ever thought to use: pure, unfiltered human stubbornness welded into metal and wiring. The betting pools gave her odds of 10,000 to 1 against finishing the race. The race commentators treated her participation as a publicity stunt, a way to boost viewership with the novelty of watching a human inevitably fail. But as Sarah Chen strapped herself into her pilot's seat and felt her ship's unique engine hum to life, she smiled, because what the galaxy didn't understand was that humans had learned something from being the youngest species in space. When you can't outthink the universe, you outwork it. When you can't bend reality, you break through it. And when every other pilot is flying with technologies they inherited, you build something they've never seen before. The starting lights began their countdown, and across the galaxy, billions of beings prepared to watch the fresh human pilot become another cautionary tale about overreach and ambition. They were about to learn why underestimating humanity was the biggest mistake the galaxy could make. The atmospheric processors of Nexus Prime hummed their eternal song as Lieutenant Sarah Chen stepped off the transport shuttle, her worn duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a sealed metal case gripped tightly in her other hand. The spaceport stretched before her like a cathedral of chrome and energy fields, with beings from dozens of species moving through customs checkpoints under the watchful sensors of automated security systems. Sarah had seen pictures of the famous racing hub, but nothing had prepared her for the sheer scale of it. Crystalline Zephyrians glided past on their hover platforms, their translucent bodies refracting the station's artificial sunlight into rainbow patterns. A group of Korathi engineers stood in a tight circle, their forearms gesticulating wildly as they argued in their musical language about propulsion coefficients. Near the departure gates, an ethereal pilot flickered in and out of visible existence, its form shifting between dimensions as it checked departure schedules. First time on Nexus Prime. The question came from behind her, spoken in accented Standard Galactic. Sarah turned to see a middle-aged human man approaching, his flight jacket bearing the insignia of the Terran commercial fleet. His weathered face carried the permanent squint of someone who had spent decades staring into the void of space. "Is it that obvious?" Sarah replied, adjusting her grip on the metal case. The man chuckled. "The wonder in your eyes gives it away. Plus, you're holding that case like it contains the crown jewels of Earth. I'm Captain Martinez, cargo runner out of the Sol system. You must be the pilot everyone's talking about." Sarah's stomach tightened. Everyone's talking about me? Word travels fast in the racing circuit. Fresh human pilot, registered for the Galactic Championship with a ship nobody's ever heard of. Martinez studied her face. "You sure you know what you're getting into, kid? This isn't some local system tournament. The beings you'll be racing against have been perfecting their craft for centuries. Some of them were already legends before your great-grandparents were born." "I know exactly what I'm getting into," Sarah said, her voice carrying more confidence than she felt. "And I'm not here to make up the numbers." Martinez whistled low. "That kind of attitude will either make you a legend or get you killed. The insurance companies are refusing to cover human pilots after what happened to Chen's predecessor. Marcus Webb tried to qualify for the circuit 2 years ago. His ship's engine overloaded during the qualification trials. They're still finding pieces of it scattered across 3 solar systems." Martinez's expression grew serious. "The alien tech in those ships isn't designed for human physiology. The G-forces alone can liquefy your internal organs, and that's before you factor in the exotic matter radiation exposure. Sarah hefted her case. Maybe that's because they were trying to use alien technology instead of building something better. Better? Martinez laughed, but there was no humor in it. Kid, these beings have been mastering faster than light travel since before humans discovered fire. Their ships can manipulate space-time itself, fold reality, like origami. What could humans possibly build that would compete with that? Instead of answering directly, Sarah looked around the spaceport at the various alien vessels visible through the transparent aluminum viewing walls. Sleek Zephyrian racers hung in their docking bays like frozen lightning, their hulls crackling with contained energy. The massive karate ships resembled geometric puzzles, their surfaces covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. And the ethereal vessels were barely visible at all, existing partially in dimensions that human eyes couldn't fully perceive. They're all so elegant, Sarah mused, so advanced, so predictable. Predictable? Martinez frowned. Those ships can break the speed of light without breaking a sweat. They've been perfecting the same technologies for centuries. They've gotten so good at manipulating exotic matter and quantum fields that they've forgotten there might be other ways to achieve the same results. When everyone is looking up at the stars, sometimes the answer is right under your feet. What's in the case, Chen? Sarah's smile was enigmatic. The reason I'm going to win this race. The registration area buzzed with activity as pilots and their support teams prepared for the championship trials. Sarah approached the main desk, where a bored-looking karate administrator was processing applications with mechanical efficiency. Its four eyes didn't even look up as it extended one of its primary manipulator arms. Species designation, ship registration, and proof of insurance, the administrator droned in standard galactic. Human, ship designation Phoenix Rising, and Sarah hesitated about the insurance. Now the administrator looked up, all four eyes focusing on her with sudden interest. Human? Are you certain you wish to participate in this competition? The mortality rate for your species in galactic racing events approaches 90 to 7%. I'm aware of the risks. The administrator's secondary arms began typing rapidly on a holographic interface. I am required to inform you that your species lacks the necessary physiological adaptations for high-velocity spaceflight. Your neural processing speed is insufficient for navigating hyperspace anomalies. Your cardiovascular system cannot withstand the acceleration forces generated by standard racing engines. I get the picture, Sarah interrupted. Can I register or not? Technically, yes. However, no insurance company will cover a human pilot. The risk assessment algorithms classify your participation as inevitable catastrophic failure. Without insurance certification, you cannot qualify for the main championship race. Sarah had expected this. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a datapad, sliding it across the desk. I'm self-insured. This document shows I have sufficient assets to cover any potential damages or cleanup costs. The administrator scanned the datapad with one eye while continuing to stare at Sarah with the other three. Its tertiary arms began fluttering in what she recognized as the Cority expression of disbelief. These figures cannot be accurate. According to this, you have liquid assets worth 12 million galactic credits. The average human military salary is patent royalties. Sarah said simply, I designed some navigation software that the Terran fleet found useful. Very useful. This was only partially true. Sarah had indeed designed revolutionary navigation algorithms during her time at the Space Academy, but the real source of her wealth came from the theoretical work she had done on alternative propulsion systems. Work that nobody else had taken seriously, but which had caught the attention of certain forward-thinking investors who understood that sometimes the most profitable ideas came from the most unexpected sources. The administrator processed her registration with considerably more respect, though its expression suggested it still considered her participation a form of elaborate suicide. As Sarah walked away from the desk, she could hear other pilots talking about her in hushed tones, their conversations a mixture of curiosity and condescension. "Did you see the human's ship specs?" one Zephyrian was saying to another. "Primitive fusion drives, magnetic field generators from the last century. It is like bringing a stone axe to a laser fight." "Humans always were an impulsive species," replied its companion. "Perhaps this display of inadequacy will discourage others from similar attempts." Sarah kept walking, her face impassive, but inside she was smiling. Let them underestimate her. Let them assume that humanity's youth in the galaxy meant inferiority. They would learn soon enough that being young also meant being unbound by conventional thinking. She made her way through the station's winding corridors to Docking Bay 47, where her ship waited. The bay doors hissed open to reveal the Phoenix Rising, and Sarah had to admit that compared to the sleek alien craft she had seen, her ship looked like exactly what it was, a cobbled-together collection of human engineering that seemed held together by determination and prayer. The Phoenix Rising was roughly the size of a small frigate, its hull a patchwork of different metals and composite materials. Where alien ships were all smooth curves and flowing lines, Sarah's vessel was angular and aggressive, bristling with sensor arrays, heat dissipators, and what looked like enough weaponry to take on a small fleet. The ship's most distinctive feature was its engine assembly, which took up nearly a third of the vessel's total length and looked like nothing else in known space. "Beautiful, isn't she?" The voice came from beneath the ship, where a pair of legs in greasy coveralls was visible. The legs wiggled out to reveal a young man with short-cropped hair and engine grease smeared across his face. "Sarah, you made it!" "Danny, what have you done to my ship?" Sarah stared at the additional modifications that had been added since she had last seen the Phoenix Rising. What looked like additional fuel tanks had been welded to the hull, and the engine assembly now sported several components she didn't recognize. Danny Okafor grinned, wiping his hands on a rag. "Improvements. After you left for Earth, I got to thinking about our power-to-weight ratio calculations. We were carrying too much dead weight in the form of redundant systems. So I stripped out everything non-essential and used the mass savings to add more fuel capacity and upgrade the magnetic field generators. Define non-essential: life support redundancy, backup navigation systems, escape pods, most of the interior bulkheads." Danny ticked off items on his fingers. "Don't worry, we've still got full life support. It's just that if it fails, we don't have a backup." Sarah walked around her ship, noting the changes. Danny had been her engineering partner since their days at the academy, and she trusted his instincts completely. If he said the modifications would improve their performance, she believed him. But the sight of her ship looking even more jury-rigged than before made her stomach clench with nervousness. "The other pilots have been coming by to look," Danny continued. "Some Zephyrian named Veltar spent about an hour examining our engine assembly with some kind of scanning device, kept muttering about primitive human fusion technology and obvious design flaws. I think he was trying to be polite about it." "What did you tell him?" "That appearances can be deceiving." Danny's grin widened. "I may have also mentioned that humans have a saying about not judging a book by its cover." He seemed confused by the metaphor. Sarah set down her duffel bag and metal case, taking a moment to really look at her ship. The Phoenix Rising was ugly, there was no denying that. It was a test bed for experimental human technology that had never been tried in actual racing conditions. Its engine design was based on theoretical work that most physicists considered interesting but impractical. By every rational measure, it was inferior to the sophisticated alien craft that would be its competition. But Sarah had spent the last 3 years of her life refining this design, working out every detail, solving every problem. The Phoenix Rising was more than just her ship. It was her life's work made manifest. And hidden within its ungainly hull was something that no other pilot in the galaxy possessed, a completely new approach to the fundamental problem of faster-than-light travel. "Have you run the final diagnostics on the core?" she asked, gesturing toward the massive engine assembly. 3 times. Everything checks out perfectly. The magnetic field generators are producing a stable containment field, the fusion chambers are running at optimal efficiency, and the exotic matter injection system is calibrated to within 0.001% of specifications. Danny's expression grew serious. Sarah, are you absolutely sure about this? The calculations look solid, but we've never tested this configuration at racing speeds. If something goes wrong, we'll deal with it. Sarah picked up her metal case and headed for the ship's loading ramp. Besides, everything about this ship is untested. That's what makes it interesting. The interior of the Phoenix Rising was as Spartan as Danny had indicated. The corridors were narrow and utilitarian, with exposed conduits and cables running along the walls. The bridge was barely large enough for 2 people, with Sarah's pilot station surrounded by displays and controls that looked like they belonged in an experimental laboratory rather than a racing vessel. Sarah settled into the pilot's chair and ran her hands over the familiar controls. This was where she belonged, surrounded by the technology she had designed and built with her own hands. The alien pilots could keep their inherited technologies and centuries of tradition. She would take human ingenuity and the willingness to try something that had never been attempted before. So what's the plan? Danny asked, taking his position at the engineering station. First, we survive the qualification trials. Then we show the galaxy what humans can really do. Sarah began the pre-flight checklist, her fingers dancing over the control interfaces. Danny, when we fire up the core for the first time, I want you to monitor every system we have. The slightest anomaly, any deviation from expected parameters, you tell me immediately. Sarah? Danny's voice was uncharacteristically subdued. What if we're wrong? What if all those alien pilots are right and humans really don't belong in this competition? Sarah paused in her preparations and looked at her friend and partner. Danny had risked his career and possibly his life to help her build this ship and chase this dream. He deserved an honest answer. Then we'll fail spectacularly and become a cautionary tale that alien parents tell their children about the dangers of overconfidence, she said. But I don't think that's going to happen. The universe is a big place, Danny, with room for more than one approach to any problem. Those pilots out there have spent centuries perfecting their methods. But perfection can also mean stagnation. Sometimes the fresh perspective is exactly what's needed to break through to the next level. Danny nodded, some of his usual confidence returning. Besides, even if we lose, we'll have the satisfaction of knowing we gave it everything we had. We're not going to lose. Sarah turned back to her controls, beginning the startup sequence for the Phoenix Rising's unique engine system. We're going to show them that being young and inexperienced doesn't mean being inferior. It means being unafraid to try something new. The ship's engines began to hum with increasing power, and through the bridge's forward viewports, Sarah could see other pilots and spectators gathering to watch the unknown human ship prepare for departure. Many of them were probably expecting to witness another tragic example of human overreach. Others were simply curious about what the primitive newcomers had managed to cobble together. In a few hours, the qualification trials would begin, and Sarah would have her chance to prove that humanity deserved a place among the fastest pilots in the galaxy. But first, she had to make sure her revolutionary engine design could actually work under real conditions. All systems showing green. Danny reported from his station. Core temperature rising to operational parameters. Magnetic field containment stable. We're ready to take her out. Sarah smiled and reached for the throttle controls. Then let's give them something to remember us by. The Phoenix Rising lifted off from its docking cradle with surprising grace for such an ungainly-looking vessel. As they cleared the station's artificial atmosphere and entered open space, Sarah could see dozens of other ships maneuvering nearby, their pilots running practice runs and system checks in preparation for the trials. She had dreamed of this moment for years, but now that it was finally here, Sarah felt a strange calm settle over her. Everything that could be planned and prepared for had been done. The rest would come down to skill, determination, and the hope that her revolutionary approach to faster-than-light travel would prove to be more than just an interesting theory. The qualification trials were about to begin, and Lieutenant Sarah Chen was ready to show the galaxy what humans could achieve when they refused to accept that something was impossible. The qualification trials took place in the Kepler Nebula, a spectacular cloud of ionized gases and stellar debris that provided both a visually stunning backdrop and a series of natural obstacles that would test every aspect of a pilot's skill. Sarah guided the Phoenix Rising through the nebula's outer edges, her sensors detecting the familiar signatures of exotic matter discharges and quantum field fluctuations that marked the presence of other racing vessels. Preliminary scans are picking up 47 other ships, Danny reported from his engineering station. Looks like we have representatives from all the major racing species. 3 ethereal pilots, which is unusual. They rarely compete in physical races. Sarah nodded, her attention focused on the sensor readings. The qualification trial was elegant in its simplicity. Navigate through a predetermined course marked by energy beacons, reach the finish line within the allotted time, and do it without dying. The course included several challenging obstacles, including a passage through the nebula's dense core where sensor interference would make navigation nearly impossible, a slalom run through a field of unstable asteroids, and a final sprint across the event horizon of a contained micro-black hole. There's Veltar's ship. Danny pointed to one of the sensor contacts. The Zephyrian vessel Crystal Wind. Look at those acceleration readings. He's already moving at 0.7 light speed and still accelerating. Sarah studied the tactical display, watching as various alien ships began their qualification runs. The Zephyrian racers moved with liquid grace, their crystalline hulls refracting exotic energies as they navigated through the course at speeds that defied conventional physics. The Corati pilots flew their geometric vessels in precise mathematical patterns, calculating optimal trajectories with four-dimensional thinking that allowed them to plot courses through spaces that existed partially outside normal reality. Most impressive were the ethereal pilots. Their ships flickered in and out of visible existence, sometimes appearing to be in multiple locations simultaneously as they navigated through the course by manipulating their relationship with spacetime itself. Watching them fly was like observing beings who had transcended the normal limitations of physics. "How are we supposed to compete with that?" Danny muttered, watching an ethereal ship apparently teleport from one end of an asteroid field to the other. "They're not even obeying the same natural laws we are." "They're obeying the same laws," Sarah replied, beginning her own pre-run checklist. "They've just learned to exploit loopholes in those laws that we haven't discovered yet. But every system has its limitations, even exotic matter manipulation and dimensional shifting. Such as..." Sarah highlighted several readings on her display. Every one of those ships is consuming enormous amounts of exotic matter to maintain their enhanced performance. The faster they go, the more energy they need, and exotic matter doesn't grow on trees. They're trading efficiency for speed. Danny frowned. "But isn't that the whole point of racing? Go as fast as possible?" "Racing is about reaching the finish line first, which isn't always the same thing as being the fastest at any given moment." Sarah made final adjustments to her ship's systems. Sometimes the winning strategy is about sustained performance rather than peak velocity. "Control to Phoenix Rising," came a transmission from the race coordinators. "You are cleared for your qualification run. Please proceed to starting beacon Alpha and await the start signal." Sarah engaged the ship's engines and felt the familiar vibration as the Phoenix Rising's unique power plant came online. The sensation was different from anything she had experienced in conventional spacecraft. Instead of the sharp acceleration of chemical rockets or the smooth push of ion drives, her ship seemed to slide forward as if the space in front of it was somehow becoming easier to move through. "All systems nominal," Danny reported. "Core temperature at optimal levels, magnetic containment fields stable. Whatever you did to the engine design, it's running smoother than anything I've ever seen." Sarah smiled, her hands moving across the control interfaces with practiced precision. The Phoenix Rising approached the starting beacon, a brilliant point of contained plasma that marked the beginning of the qualification course. Around her, she could see the other ships that hadn't yet completed their runs, their pilots no doubt studying her vessel with curiosity and condescension. "Attention all vessels," came the announcement from race control. "Phoenix Rising, you are cleared for qualification run. Course timer begins in 10 seconds. Sarah's heart rate increased as the countdown began, but her hands remained steady on the controls. This was the moment 3 years of work had been building toward. Everything else was just preparation. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, begin run. The Phoenix Rising leaped forward with startling acceleration, and Sarah felt herself pressed back into her pilot's seat as her ship's revolutionary engine system engaged fully for the first time. But something was different. The acceleration felt wrong, smoother than it should be, as if her ship was moving through a medium that offered less resistance than normal space. "Danny, are you seeing this?" she called out, her eyes scanning the instrument displays. "Our velocity readings don't match our acceleration curve. According to these sensors, we should be moving at 0.4 light speed, but the navigation computer says we're already approaching 0.6. I'm seeing it, but I don't understand it. The fusion chambers are operating exactly within expected parameters. The exotic matter injection system is working perfectly, but somehow we're achieving better performance than our calculations predicted." Sarah didn't have time to analyze the anomaly. The first obstacle was approaching, a dense field of charged plasma that required precise navigation to avoid engine damage. She could see the course markers ahead, brilliant beacons that showed the optimal path through the hazard. The other pilots had navigated this section by using their ship's exotic matter manipulation systems to create protective fields around their vessels, essentially bulldozing their way through the plasma clouds with brute force. Sarah had planned to take a more conventional approach, using her ship's magnetic field generators to deflect the charged particles. But as the Phoenix Rising entered the plasma field, something unexpected happened. Instead of deflecting the charged particles, her ship seemed to attract them, drawing the plasma into organized streams that flowed around her hull like water around a stone. The effect was mesmerizing, transforming her vessel into a comet of contained energy that blazed through the obstacle with unprecedented grace. "Sarah, are you seeing the sensor readings?" Danny's voice carried a note of awe. "The plasma isn't just flowing around us, it's actually reducing the local space-time resistance. We're using the plasma field to create our own slipstream." Sarah stared at her instruments in amazement. Her ship's unique engine design wasn't just propelling her through space, it was somehow modifying the physical properties of the space around her. The theoretical work she had based her engine on suggested this might be possible, but seeing it happen in reality was breathtaking. "How is this possible?" she murmured. "I don't know, but whatever we're doing, it's working. Our course time is already 20% better than any previous qualifier." The plasma field gave way to open space, and Sarah could see the next obstacle ahead, the asteroid slalom. This was traditionally the most dangerous part of the qualification course, requiring pilots to navigate through a field of unstable rock formations that were constantly shifting position due to gravitational anomalies. Sarah watched the tactical display as the asteroids moved in their chaotic patterns, trying to identify a safe path through the maze. The conventional approach was to use advanced sensors and prediction algorithms to calculate the optimal route, threading the needle between moving obstacles with mathematical precision. But as her ship approached the asteroid field, Sarah noticed something interesting. The same effect that had organized the plasma streams was now influencing the gravitational fields around the asteroids. The massive rocks were responding to her ship's presence, their orbital patterns shifting subtly to create corridors of safe passage. "This is impossible," Danny breathed, watching the display. "It's like the asteroids are moving out of our way." Sarah felt a surge of excitement as she realized what was happening. Her engine design wasn't just manipulating space-time for propulsion. It was creating a localized field effect that influenced the behavior of matter and energy in her ship's vicinity. She wasn't just racing through the course, she was reshaping it as she moved. The Phoenix Rising danced through the asteroid field with fluid grace, following paths that opened up just moments before her arrival and closed again after she passed. What should have been a desperate struggle for survival became an elegant ballet of physics and engineering. Course time now 30% better than the previous record, Danny reported, his voice filled with wonder. Sarah, we're not just qualifying. We're rewriting the book on what's possible in this kind of racing. The final obstacle loomed ahead. The micro-black hole passage. This was the most feared section of the course, requiring pilots to navigate the extreme gravitational gradient at the edge of the event horizon without being torn apart by tidal forces. Most ships accomplish this by using exotic matter fields to create protective bubbles of normal space-time around their vessels. Sarah had planned to use her ship's magnetic field generators to create a similar protective effect, but as the Phoenix Rising approached the micro-black hole, she realized her revolutionary engine was once again providing an unexpected advantage. The gravitational field of the black hole was interacting with her ship's space-time modifications in ways that defied conventional understanding. Instead of being pulled toward the event horizon, the Phoenix Rising seemed to surf along the gravity well's edge, using the intense curvature of space-time as a natural acceleration boost. Her ship rode the gravitational waves like a surfer riding ocean swells, gathering speed and momentum from the very force that should have destroyed her. Velocity now approaching 0.9 light speed, Danny called out, his voice tight with excitement and terror. Whatever this engine is doing, it's treating the black hole's gravity well like a slingshot. Sarah felt the G-forces pressing against her body as her ship accelerated beyond anything she had ever experienced. But strangely, the forces felt manageable, as if her ship's field effects were somehow protecting her from the worst effects of the extreme acceleration. The finish line appeared ahead, marked by a brilliant beacon that shone like a star against the cosmic background. Sarah could see the sensor readings from the other ships that had completed their qualification runs, their times displayed on her tactical screen. The fastest previous run had been completed by an ethereal pilot in just under 47 minutes. As the Phoenix Rising crossed the finish line, Sarah heard Danny's triumphant shout over the ship's communication system. 28 minutes, 14 seconds. Sarah, we just broke the course record by almost 20 minutes. The implications of what had just happened began to sink in as Sarah throttled back her engines and felt the Phoenix Rising return to normal space-time behavior. Her ship hadn't just qualified for the main race, it had demonstrated performance capabilities that exceeded anything previously achieved by any species in the galactic racing circuit. Phoenix Rising to race control, she transmitted, trying to keep her voice steady. Qualification run completed. Requesting permission to return to Nexus Prime. There was a long pause before the response came, and when it did, the voice of the race coordinator carried a note of disbelief. Phoenix Rising, please confirm your course time. Our sensors recorded 28 minutes and 14 seconds, but this seems to be an error. Time confirmed, control. 28 minutes, 14 seconds. Another pause, longer this time. Sarah could imagine the chaos that was probably erupting in the race control center as officials tried to understand how a primitive human ship had just achieved the impossible. Phoenix Rising, please proceed directly to Technical Inspection Dock 7 upon your return to Nexus Prime. All race participants are subject to mandatory post-qualification equipment verification. Sarah wasn't surprised by the inspection order. Her performance had been so far outside expected parameters that race officials would naturally want to verify that she hadn't cheated somehow. The problem was that she wasn't entirely sure her ship would pass a conventional technical inspection, not because she had violated any rules, but because the technology she was using was so far beyond current understanding that it might not be recognized as legal. "What do you think they'll make of our engine design?" Danny asked as they began the journey back to Nexus Prime. "I have no idea." The rules specify that ships must not use any technologies that give them an unfair advantage through the manipulation of space-time physics, but our engine doesn't manipulate space-time so much as it encourages space-time to behave more cooperatively. Danny laughed. I'm not sure race officials will appreciate the distinction. As the Phoenix Rising made its way back to the station, Sarah's communication systems began receiving dozens of requests for interviews from sports reporters and racing analysts from across the galaxy. Her performance had apparently been broadcast live to billions of viewers, and the galaxy was buzzing with speculation about the mysterious human pilot and her revolutionary ship. We're getting hail requests from everyone, Danny reported. The Galactic Racing Network wants an exclusive interview. The Zephyrian Sports Authority is requesting detailed technical specifications. Even the Ethereal Racing Guild has sent a formal inquiry about our propulsion systems. I ignore them all for now. We need to focus on getting through the technical inspection without raising too many questions about our engine design. Sarah paused, considering their situation. Danny, what are the chances that our engine will pass a standard technical review? Honestly, I have no idea. We're not violating any known physical laws, but we're definitely exploiting some interactions that nobody has ever documented before. If the inspectors understand what they're looking at, they might rule our technology illegal. If they don't understand it, they might clear us simply because they can't figure out how to classify what we're doing. Sarah nodded, her mind racing through the possibilities. Her ship had just proven that human engineering could compete with and surpass the most advanced alien technologies. But that achievement would be meaningless if race officials disqualified her for using unauthorized modifications. The real irony was that her engine design was based entirely on principles that were available to any species in the galaxy. The theoretical framework she had used was published in scientific journals, and the engineering techniques she had employed were well within the capabilities of any advanced civilization. The only reason nobody else had developed similar technology was that they had been too focused on perfecting their existing approaches to consider alternative possibilities. Nexus Prime Control to Phoenix Rising, came the transmission as they approached the station. You are cleared for docking at Inspection Bay 7. Please proceed directly to your assigned berth and prepare for immediate technical evaluation. Sarah could see the inspection bay ahead, surrounded by the sleek vessels of other qualified racers. Many of the alien pilots had gathered to observe her ship's arrival, their curiosity clearly outweighing their previous dismissive attitudes. Word of her record-breaking performance had spread quickly, and she was no longer just the amusing human novelty. She was now a serious competitor who had just demonstrated capabilities that challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about racing technology. Well, Danny, Sarah said as she maneuvered the Phoenix Rising into its assigned dock, here we go. Time to see if human engineering can stand up to official scrutiny. The docking clamps engaged with a solid thunk, and Sarah could see the technical inspection team already approaching her ship. The team included representatives from multiple species, each bringing their own expertise and perspective to the evaluation process. She recognized the distinctive crystalline structure of Zephyrian engineers, the geometric precision of Karathi technicians, and the flickering forms of ethereal analysts. This would be the real test. Her ship had proven it could perform. But could it survive the intense scrutiny of beings who had been working with advanced racing technology for centuries? Sarah took a deep breath and began shutting down her ship's systems, preparing to defend her revolutionary engine design against whatever challenges lay ahead. The qualification trials were over, but Sarah Chen's real race was just beginning. The technical inspection bay buzzed with activity as teams of alien engineers swarmed over the Phoenix Rising like scientists examining a newly discovered artifact. Sarah watched from the observation deck as Zephyrian technicians ran their crystalline scanning devices over her ship's hull, while Corridy analysts performed complex mathematical calculations to understand her engine's energy signatures. The ethereal representatives were the most unsettling, their partially dimensional forms allowing them to examine components that were technically inside sealed compartments. "This is highly irregular," declared Chief Inspector Kortha, a senior Cority official whose 4 arms moved in constant motion as he coordinated the various inspection teams. The energy readings from this vessel's propulsion system do not match any known configuration in our databases. Sarah stood beside Danny in the observation area, trying to project confidence while internally worrying about what the inspectors might find. Her ship's engine was completely legal according to the letter of galactic racing regulations, but the spirit of those rules assumed that all participants would be using variations of established exotic matter manipulation technologies. The fusion chambers appear to be standard human design, reported a Zephyrian engineer, her crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns as she spoke. However, the exotic matter injection system is unlike anything in our technical specifications. The containment fields are created using magnetic manipulation rather than dimensional folding. Magnetic containment of exotic matter should be impossible, interjected a Karathi technician. Our calculations indicate that the field strength required would exceed the structural limits of any known material. Sarah exchanged a glance with Danny. This was the heart of her revolutionary design, and she had known it would be difficult to explain to inspectors who were thinking within conventional frameworks. "Inspector Kortha," she called out, her voice carrying across the bay. "May I address the technical team?" The Cority official's primary eyes swiveled to focus on her. "You are the pilot of this vessel. I'm also its designer and chief engineer. Perhaps I can clarify some of the questions about my ship's propulsion system." "Very well. Please explain how your magnetic containment system achieves exotic matter stability without dimensional manipulation." Sarah took a deep breath and walked down to the inspection bay floor, approaching her ship with the confidence of someone who understood every bolt and wire in its construction. The alien technicians gathered around her, their various scanning devices and analytical instruments creating a forest of exotic technology. "The key insight," Sarah began, running her hand along the Phoenix Rising's engine assembly, was realizing that exotic matter doesn't need to be contained in the traditional sense. Instead of fighting its natural tendency to phase in and out of normal space-time, my design works with that tendency. "Explain," commanded the Korathi inspector, his secondary arms poised over a holographic recording device. "Conventional exotic matter engines use dimensional folding to keep the fuel stable in normal space. This requires enormous amounts of energy and creates inherent inefficiencies. My system uses magnetic fields to create a resonance effect that synchronizes the exotic matter's phase fluctuations with the ship's propulsion cycle." A Zephyrian engineer flickered with confusion. "But magnetic fields cannot directly interact with exotic matter. The physics are incompatible." Quote, "Not directly, no. But exotic matter does interact with the quantum vacuum, and the quantum vacuum responds to electromagnetic manipulation. By creating specific field patterns, I can influence the boundary conditions between normal space and exotic matter states." Sarah gestured to a complex array of field generators mounted around her ship's engine core. "These magnetic field projectors don't contain the exotic matter. They create a standing wave pattern in local space-time that makes it energetically favorable for the exotic matter to remain in phase with normal reality. The ethereal representative materialized more fully, its form stabilizing enough to communicate in standard galactic. Your approach treats exotic matter as a cooperative partner rather than a controlled resource." "Exactly. Instead of forcing exotic matter to behave according to our requirements, I design my engine to work with exotic matter's natural properties. The result is a system that's more efficient and produces some unexpected side effects, such as..." Inspector Kortha's tone carried a note of suspicion. "The phase synchronization effect extends beyond the ship's immediate vicinity. Local space-time becomes more cooperative, reducing resistance to high-velocity travel and creating beneficial interactions with gravitational fields and plasma dynamics." The inspection team exchanged glances, their various forms of nonverbal communication creating a complex interplay of lights, sounds, and dimensional fluctuations. Sarah could sense their confusion and skepticism, but also their growing recognition that her technology represented something genuinely new. "This is unprecedented," the Zephyrian engineer admitted. "We have been perfecting exotic matter manipulation for millennia, always assuming that direct control was the optimal approach. Your method suggests an entirely different philosophical framework. Human engineering tends to emphasize cooperation over domination," Sarah replied. "We work with natural forces rather than trying to overpower them." Inspector Kortha's tertiary arms began typing rapidly on his holographic interface. "The regulations require that all racing technology be based on established physical principles and present no unfair advantages through exploitation of unknown phenomena. Your engine design appears to satisfy the first criterion, but the second is more problematic." Sarah's heart sank. She had been afraid of this reaction. "With respect, Inspector, my engine doesn't exploit unknown phenomena. It simply applies known physics in a new way. The theoretical foundation for everything I've done has been published in peer-reviewed journals for decades." "That may be true, but the practical applications you have achieved were unknown to our regulatory committees when the current rules were established. The question becomes whether your technology provides capabilities that other participants cannot reasonably be expected to match. Every racing ship in this competition uses technology that other species don't fully understand. Zephyrian crystalline engineering, Korathi dimensional mathematics, ethereal phase manipulation, each species brings their own unique advantages to racing. My ship simply represents humanity's contribution to that diversity." The ethereal representative flickered through several dimensional states before responding. "The human makes a valid point. Racing has always been about the application of each species' particular strengths. To exclude her technology would be to exclude human participation entirely. However," the Zephyrian engineer interjected, "her performance advantage appears to be significant. A 20-minute improvement over previous records suggests capabilities that go far beyond species-specific optimization." Danny stepped forward from the observation deck. "If I may, the performance advantage isn't necessarily permanent. Other species could develop similar technologies if they chose to pursue this approach. The theoretical work is publicly available, and the engineering principles are well within the capabilities of any advanced civilization." "But they have not pursued this approach," Inspector Kortha pointed out, "which raises the question of whether human technology should be allowed when it provides such a significant competitive advantage." Sarah felt frustration building in her chest. Her ship was being penalized, not for breaking the rules, but for being too innovative. The irony was bitter. She was being excluded not for failing to meet galactic standards, but for exceeding them too dramatically. "Inspector," she said, trying to keep her voice level, "I understand your concerns, but consider the implications of your decision. If you disqualify technology simply because it's too effective, you're essentially punishing innovation. That sets a precedent that will stagnate racing for centuries to come. Moreover," added the ethereal, its form solidifying as it became more engaged in the discussion, "the human's approach may inspire new developments across all species. Racing has always been a driver of technological advancement. To suppress a breakthrough like this would be counterproductive." The inspection team huddled together, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of lights, sounds, and dimensional distortions as they debated Sarah's fate. She could only stand and wait, watching her dreams potentially dissolve because she had been too successful. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, Inspector Kortha approached her with his decision recorded on his holographic interface. "After extensive deliberation, the technical inspection team has reached the following conclusions. First, your propulsion system does not violate any existing regulations regarding prohibited technologies. Second, your performance advantage, while significant, appears to be the result of legitimate innovation rather than unfair exploitation of unknown physics. Third, excluding your technology would create a precedent that could harm the competitive evolution of galactic racing." Sarah held her breath, waiting for the verdict. "Therefore, the Phoenix Rising is cleared for participation in the Galactic Racing Championship. However, We are implementing a new regulation that requires all participants using novel propulsion technologies to provide detailed technical documentation to race officials within 1 standard year of competition. This will ensure that all species have access to the theoretical foundations of breakthrough developments. Relief flooded through Sarah's body like a wave of warm water. She had passed the inspection and earned the right to compete in the main championship. But the victory came with a price. She would have to share her technological innovations with her competitors. "Thank you, Inspector," she said, trying not to show how much the condition bothered her. "I understand the reasoning behind the documentation requirement. The main championship race begins in 72 standard hours," Korthaw continued. "You will be racing against 46 other qualified pilots, including previous champions and record holders. Your qualification performance has made you a marked target. Other pilots will be studying your techniques and developing countermeasures. As the inspection team dispersed and the other alien engineers returned to their own ships, Sarah and Danny found themselves alone with the Phoenix Rising. The reality of their situation was beginning to sink in. They were no longer unknown underdogs flying under everyone's radar. They were now serious contenders, which meant they would face the full attention and competitive pressure of the galaxy's best pilots. "How do you feel about sharing our engine specifications?" Danny asked as they walked around their ship, checking for any damage from the inspection process. "Conflicted," Sarah admitted. "Part of me wants to keep our advantages secret as long as possible, but another part of me recognizes that advancing the state of racing technology benefits everyone. If other species can build on our work and develop even better approaches, racing becomes more exciting for pilots and spectators alike." "That's very noble of you, also completely insane from a competitive standpoint. Maybe. But consider this. We developed this technology starting from basic principles. If other species try to copy our approach without understanding the fundamental concepts, they're likely to make mistakes. And while they're busy trying to replicate what we've already done, we can continue innovating." Danny nodded, seeing the logic. "Stay one step ahead by continuing to push the boundaries." "Exactly. Besides, I have a few ideas for modifications that might give us additional advantages in the main race." Joy such as... Sarah smiled, her mind already racing through possibilities. The qualification course was relatively simple, designed to test basic capabilities rather than advanced techniques. The championship race will be much more complex, with multiple stages that require different types of performance optimization. Our engine's cooperative approach to exotic matter manipulation might allow us to adapt our ship's characteristics in real time to meet different challenges. Adaptive configuration changes during the race? Why not? If we can synchronize exotic matter phase states with our propulsion cycle, we might also be able to synchronize them with specific performance requirements. High acceleration for sprint sections, maximum efficiency for endurance legs, enhanced maneuverability for technical courses. Danny stared at her in amazement. "You're talking about a ship that can reconfigure its fundamental operating characteristics while racing. That's impossible according to conventional thinking," Sarah finished, "which means no one will be expecting it." Over the next 2 days, Sarah and Danny worked frantically to implement the modifications Sarah had envisioned. The changes were largely software-based, requiring new algorithms to manage the exotic matter synchronization patterns and additional sensor arrays to monitor the ship's performance in real time. The work was complicated by the constant stream of visitors who wanted to examine the Phoenix Rising. Racing reporters, technical analysts, and pilots from other species found excuses to visit their docking bay, all hoping to learn something about the mysterious human technology that had broken a centuries-old course record. Sarah handled the attention with polite evasion, answering questions without revealing anything significant about her ship's capabilities. She could sense the mixture of respect and concern in her visitors' attitudes. They no longer dismissed her as an amusing novelty, but they weren't yet sure how seriously to take the threat she represented. The most interesting visitor was Veltar, the Zephyrian pilot who had initially been so dismissive of her ship's appearance. The crystalline being approached her on the second day, his form flickering with what she had learned to recognize as expressions of curiosity and respect. "Human Sarah," he said in his musical voice, "I owe you an apology for my initial assessment of your vessel. Your qualification performance has forced me to reconsider many assumptions about the nature of racing technology. No apology necessary, Veltar. I understand that my ship doesn't look like much compared to the elegant vessels that most species build. Elegance can be deceiving. Your ship achieves with simplicity what we accomplish through complexity. There is a different kind of beauty in that approach." Sarah studied the alien pilot, trying to gauge his motivations. Veltar was a 3-time championship winner and widely considered one of the best racers in the galaxy. His respect meant something significant. "Are you concerned about the competition?" she asked directly. Veltar's crystalline form flickered through several color patterns before responding. "Concerned? No. Excited, yes. For decades, racing has become predictable. The same species winning with the same techniques, marginal improvements in performance rather than revolutionary breakthroughs. Your participation has made this championship interesting again, even if it means you might not win, especially if it means I might not win. Victory without challenge is meaningless. You have reminded us all why we began racing in the first place, to push the boundaries of what is possible." After Veltar left, Sarah felt a strange mixture of pride and apprehension. She had earned the respect of one of the galaxy's greatest pilots, but that respect came with the knowledge that she would be facing competitors who were taking her seriously as a threat. The championship race was now less than 24 hours away, and Sarah Chen was about to discover whether human innovation could truly compete with thousands of years of alien racing tradition. The qualification trials had been impressive, but the main event would be the ultimate test of her revolutionary approach to faster-than-light travel. As she made final preparations for the race that would determine humanity's place in galactic racing, Sarah reflected on how far she had come from that first moment when everyone had dismissed her as just another overconfident human. She had proven that fresh perspectives and innovative thinking could challenge established hierarchies, but tomorrow would determine whether those qualities were enough to win. The championship race began in the Titan Nebula, a vast expanse of ionized gases and exotic matter storms that stretched across 12 light-years of space. Unlike the relatively simple qualification course, the championship would test every aspect of racing skill across multiple stages, each presenting different challenges that required specific approaches to navigation, speed, and survival. Sarah sat in the Phoenix Rising's pilot seat, her hands steady on the controls despite the magnitude of what lay ahead. Around her, 46 other ships waited at the starting line, their various forms of exotic technology creating a light show that rivaled the nebula's natural beauty. The Zephyrian vessels gleamed like living crystals, their hulls crackling with contained energy. Corythi ships hung in perfect geometric formations, their surfaces covered in mathematical symbols that shifted and changed as their pilots performed final calculations. The ethereal racers flickered in and out of visible existence, sometimes appearing as solid craft and sometimes as translucent ghosts that existed partially in other dimensions. All systems showing optimal, Danny reported from his engineering station. "The modifications we made are integrating perfectly with the base engine design. Exotic matter synchronization is stable across all performance profiles." Sarah nodded, her attention focused on the tactical display that showed the race course layout. The championship consisted of 5 distinct stages, each requiring different types of performance optimization. Stage 1 was a pure speed trial through the nebula's outer regions, where pilots could push their ships to maximum velocity without worrying about obstacles. Stage 2 involved precision navigation through a field of unstable wormholes, where a single mistake could send a ship careening into another dimension. Stage 3 was an endurance run across open space, testing the efficiency and reliability of each ship's propulsion system. Stage 4 required technical flying through a maze of artificial gravity wells and exotic matter storms. The final stage was a sprint to the finish line through a gauntlet of defensive systems that would test each pilot's combat reflexes. "This is control to all racers," came the announcement across all communication channels. "Championship race begins in 60 seconds. Pilots, please confirm your readiness status." One by one, the various ships transmitted their confirmations. Sarah waited for her turn, watching the other competitors on her display. Many of them were legendary figures in galactic racing, pilots whose names were known across dozens of star systems. Eltar in his crystal wind, the Cority mathematical genius Praxon in his ship Infinite Theorem, the mysterious Ariel, known only as Whisper, whose vessel existed in a state of constant dimensional flux. Phoenix Rising, ready for race start, Sarah transmitted when her turn came. "Confirmed Phoenix Rising, all racers ready. Championship race begins in 10:07:30. 8, Sarah felt her heart rate increase, but her hands remained steady. 3 years of preparation had led to this moment. Everything she had learned about physics, engineering, and racing was about to be tested against the best pilots in the galaxy. 3, 2, 1, race start. The starting line erupted in a burst of exotic energies as 47 ships engaged their engines simultaneously. Sarah felt the Phoenix Rising leap forward, but instead of simply accelerating through normal space, she engaged the adaptive configuration system she and Danny had developed. "Switching to high-velocity sprint profile," she called out, her fingers dancing across the control interfaces. The ship's exotic matter synchronization patterns shifted, optimizing for maximum speed rather than efficiency or maneuverability. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Instead of the smooth acceleration curve typical of exotic matter engines, the Phoenix Rising shot forward like a projectile fired from a magnetic catapult. "Velocity now 0.8 light speed and climbing," Danny reported, his voice tight with excitement. "The new synchronization patterns are working perfectly. We're already pulling ahead of most of the field." Sarah watched her tactical display as other ships fell behind, their pilots struggling to match the Phoenix Rising's unexpected acceleration. But she knew the early leaders wouldn't necessarily win the race. Stage 1 was just the beginning, and the real challenges lay ahead. The Zephyrian pilot Veltar was keeping pace in his crystal wind, his ship's crystalline hull refracting exotic energies in brilliant patterns as he pushed his vessel to its limits. Several Karathi racers were maintaining competitive speeds through precise mathematical optimization of their flight paths, and the ethereal pilots were using their dimensional manipulation abilities to take shortcuts through folded space, sometimes appearing ahead of ships that had been leading moments before. "Approaching Stage 2 transition," Sarah announced, studying the sensor readings that showed the wormhole field ahead. "Switching to precision navigation profile." The Phoenix Rising's exotic matter patterns shifted again, trading raw speed for enhanced maneuverability and sensor precision. The change felt like switching from a race car to a precision instrument, with every control input producing exactly the intended response. The wormhole field was a nightmare of unstable space-time distortions, with dozens of dimensional tunnels opening and closing randomly throughout the area. Most pilots approached this section with extreme caution, using advanced sensors and predictive algorithms to identify safe passages through the maze. But as Sarah entered the field, she discovered that her ship's exotic matter synchronization was interacting with the wormhole distortions in unexpected ways. Instead of being threatened by the unstable space-time, the Phoenix Rising seemed to stabilize the wormholes as it approached them, creating temporary corridors of normal space that allowed for much faster transit. "This is impossible," Danny muttered, watching the sensor displays. "We're not just navigating through the wormhole field. We're actually stabilizing the space-time distortions as we pass through them." "The exotic matter synchronization must be resonating with the wormhole formation dynamics," Sarah replied, threading her ship through a particularly complex series of dimensional tunnels. "Instead of fighting the instability, we're helping the wormholes maintain coherent structures." The effect allowed the Phoenix Rising to take direct routes through the field that other pilots couldn't attempt, cutting minutes off the normal transit time. By the time she emerged from the wormhole maze, Sarah had built a substantial lead over most of her competitors, but the race was far from over. Stage 3 was an endurance run across several light-years of open space, and Sarah knew that her early speed advantage would be meaningless if her ship couldn't maintain performance over the long haul. Switching to maximum efficiency profile, she announced, reconfiguring the exotic matter patterns once again. This time, the Phoenix Rising settled into a smooth, sustainable cruise that felt almost effortless. The ship seemed to glide through space with minimal energy expenditure, its revolutionary engine design proving its superiority in long-distance performance. Fuel consumption at 60% of predicted levels, Danny reported. At this rate, we could probably complete twice the required distance without refueling. The endurance stage was playing directly to her ship's strengths, and she could see other racers beginning to fall behind as their less efficient engines consumed exotic matter at unsustainable rates. But her confidence was shaken when she noticed several competitors taking alternative approaches to the endurance challenge. The ethereal pilots were using dimensional phase shifting to reduce their ship's interaction with normal spacetime, effectively reducing the energy required for propulsion. Some Korathi racers were employing mathematical optimization techniques that allowed them to extract more performance from each unit of exotic matter fuel. Most concerning was Veltar's Crystal Wind, which seemed to be maintaining competitive speed despite what should have been inferior fuel efficiency. Sarah studied her sensors, trying to understand what the Zephyrian pilot was doing differently. "Danny, are you seeing Veltar's energy signature?" "His consumption patterns don't match what we'd expect from standard Zephyrian technology." "I see it. It looks like he's somehow drawing additional energy from the cosmic background radiation. His ship is using the ambient energy of space itself to supplement his exotic matter fuel." Sarah nodded grimly. She had expected her competitors to adapt and innovate in response to her ship's performance, but seeing it happen so quickly was sobering. The galaxy's best pilots weren't just skilled, they were creative problem solvers who could develop new techniques in real time. The endurance stage gave way to Stage 4, the technical flying section that would test each pilot's ability to navigate through artificial hazards and obstacles. Sarah reconfigured her ship once more, optimizing for maneuverability and precise control. The technical course was a three-dimensional maze of gravity wells, exotic matter storms, and kinetic barriers that required split-second timing and perfect precision to navigate safely. Sarah had always excelled at this type of flying, but she was about to discover that her competition was equally skilled. The Phoenix Rising danced through the obstacles with fluid grace, but so did Veltar's Crystal Wind and several other top-tier racers. The technical stage became a showcase of pilot skill rather than ship technology, with the lead changing hands multiple times as different pilots found optimal lines through the various challenges. "We're running neck and neck with Crystal Wind and 2 Korathi ships," Danny reported. "This is going to come down to the final sprint stage." Sarah's jaw tightened with determination. The final stage would be the ultimate test, requiring pilots to navigate through a defensive gauntlet while maintaining maximum speed. It was exactly the kind of challenge that separated good pilots from great ones. Switching to combat sprint profile, she announced, engaging the most aggressive configuration her adaptive system could provide. The Phoenix Rising transformed once more, becoming a missile of contained energy that streaked toward the final stage's starting line. The defensive gauntlet consisted of automated weapon systems, particle beam arrays, and kinetic interceptors designed to test each pilot's reflexes and tactical awareness. As Sarah entered the gauntlet, she felt the familiar thrill of high-speed combat flying. Laser beams lanced through space around her ship, forcing her to execute violent evasive maneuvers while maintaining forward momentum. Particle cannons filled the void with deadly energy, creating a maze of destruction that had to be navigated with perfect timing. But the Phoenix Rising's adaptive capabilities gave Sarah an edge she hadn't expected. The ship's exotic matter synchronization allowed her to make instantaneous performance adjustments, switching between high-speed evasion and precise maneuvering as the tactical situation demanded. Multiple missile locks, Danny called out as automated defense systems targeted their ship. Sarah threw the Phoenix Rising into a spiraling dive, using the ship's enhanced maneuverability to break the targeting solutions while maintaining course toward the finish line. Behind her, she could see other racers struggling with similar challenges, their ships trading speed for survival as they worked to avoid the defensive systems. The finish line appeared ahead, marked by a brilliant beacon that shone like a star against the cosmic background. Sarah could see Veltar's crystal wind running parallel to her course, the two ships neck and neck in the final approach. Several Korthi racers were close behind, their mathematical precision allowing them to optimize their flight paths through the defensive gauntlet. "It's going to be close," Danny warned, watching the tactical display as multiple ships converged on the finish line. Sarah pushed the Phoenix Rising to its absolute limits, feeling the ship strain against the boundaries of physics as every system operated at maximum capacity. The finish line rushed toward them, and she could see Veltar's ship pulling slightly ahead in the final moments. Then, in the last few seconds of the race, Sarah made a decision that would become legendary in galactic racing history. Instead of trying to outrun her competition through conventional acceleration, she engaged all of her ship's adaptive profiles simultaneously. The Phoenix Rising became something unprecedented, a vessel optimized for speed, efficiency, maneuverability, and precision at the same time. The exotic matter synchronization patterns that had been designed to switch between different configurations instead merged into a single, impossibly complex pattern that enhanced every aspect of the ship's performance. The effect was spectacular. The Phoenix Rising shot forward with acceleration that defied rational explanation, threading through the final defensive barriers with impossible precision while maintaining speed that should have torn the ship apart. Sarah crossed the finish line a full ship length ahead of Veltar's crystal wind, with the rest of the field trailing behind by increasingly larger margins. As she throttled back her engines and felt the Phoenix Rising return to normal space-time behavior, Sarah realized that she had just accomplished something that most beings would have considered impossible. A human pilot flying a ship built from theoretical principles that established science had dismissed as impractical had just won the most prestigious racing championship in the galaxy. Championship time. 4 hours, 17 minutes, 32 seconds, came the announcement from Race Control. New galactic record. Winner, Phoenix Rising. Pilot Sarah Chen representing the human species. The communication channels erupted with congratulations, analysis, and requests for interviews from across the galaxy. Sarah had not only won the race, she had shattered the previous record by over an hour and demonstrated capabilities that would force every species to reconsider their approach to faster-than-light travel. But as the immediate excitement began to fade, Sarah realized that winning the championship was just the beginning. Her victory had proven that humans belonged among the galaxy's elite pilots, but it had also made her the target of intense scrutiny and competition. Every other species would now be working to understand and counter her technological advantages. The fresh pilot had become the champion, but maintaining that position would require even greater innovations and challenges that she could barely imagine. 3 months after her championship victory, Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed Human Racing Academy on Mars, watching a group of young pilots put their ships through advanced maneuvers in the simulation chambers below. The facility had been built with her prize money and endorsement deals, but more importantly, it represented the future of human participation in galactic racing. "The Kowalski girl is showing real promise," Danny observed, joining her at the viewing window. "Her approach to exotic matter synchronization is even more intuitive than yours was at her age." Sarah nodded, watching 17-year-old Elena Kowalski guide her training ship through a complex series of dimensional transitions. The young pilot had grown up reading about Sarah's championship victory, and her technique showed the confidence that came from knowing that humans could compete with any species in the galaxy. "The whole dynamic has changed. When I started racing, I had to prove that humans belonged in the competition. These kids are growing up knowing they belong. It makes them fearless." The aftermath of Sarah's victory had been more complex than she had anticipated. The immediate result was a surge of human interest in racing, with dozens of young pilots applying to join training programs that had been hastily established to capitalize on the newfound prestige. Major corporations lined up to sponsor human racing teams, seeing the commercial potential in a species that had proven it could compete with civilizations thousands of years more advanced. But the real impact was felt across the galaxy as other species scrambled to understand and counter the technological advantages that had made Sarah's victory possible. The mandatory documentation she had provided to race officials had been studied by every major racing organization, leading to a renaissance of innovation that transformed the sport. "Have you seen the latest Zephyrian ship designs?" Danny asked, pulling up a holographic display that showed sleek, crystalline vessels incorporating elements of human magnetic field manipulation. "They're calling it cooperative engineering, and early tests suggest they're achieving efficiency improvements of 30% over their previous designs." "Veltar sent me the technical specifications last week," Sarah replied. "He said that racing against the Phoenix Rising taught him that domination and cooperation could coexist in the same system. His new ship uses crystalline matrices to enhance magnetic field effects rather than replacing them." The Zephyrian pilot had become one of Sarah's closest competitors and, surprisingly, one of her best friends in the racing circuit. Their mutual respect had evolved into a collaborative relationship that was pushing both pilots to new levels of performance. The upcoming season would feature several races where human and Zephyrian teams would compete directly, testing innovations that neither species could have developed alone. "What about the Korathi response?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer would be impressive. Danny grinned. "They're calling it mathematical cooperation theory. Instead of using pure geometric optimization, they're incorporating probabilistic elements that account for the unpredictable benefits of working with natural forces rather than controlling them. Their new ships can perform real-time optimization adjustments that rival our adaptive configuration system." Sarah wasn't surprised. The Korathi were mathematical geniuses who would quickly recognize the theoretical elegance of her approach. What impressed her was how rapidly they had developed practical applications that built on her work while remaining distinctly Korathi in their implementation.
"And the ethereals? That's where things get really interesting."
They're experimenting with what they call dimensional cooperation, using their phase-shifting abilities to help stabilize space-time distortions rather than just exploiting them. Early reports suggest they're achieving unprecedented integration between their ships and the fabric of reality itself. Sarah walked over to her desk where data pads and holographic displays showed technical analyses from racing organizations across the galaxy. Her victory had triggered an explosion of innovation that was transforming not just racing, but fundamental approaches to faster-than-light travel, exotic matter manipulation, and space-time engineering. The Galactic Racing Authority estimates that technological advancement in the past 3 months has equaled what we normally see in a decade, she said, scanning the latest reports. "Every species is developing new approaches based on cooperative principles rather than domination paradigms." "Are you worried about losing your competitive advantage?" Danny asked. Sarah considered the question. It was natural to be concerned about other species catching up to human innovations, but she found herself feeling more excited than worried about the increased competition. "No, I'm not worried. If anything, I'm looking forward to it. Racing is always better when everyone is pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Besides, human innovation has never been about maintaining static advantages. We're good at adapting and improving, which means we can keep evolving our approach as fast as anyone else." A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. Sarah activated the holographic display to see the face of Admiral Rodriguez, commander of the Terran Space Racing Division. "Chen, I hope I'm not interrupting anything important," the Admiral said, his expression serious despite the pleasant greeting. "Not at all, Admiral. What can I do for you? We've received an interesting proposal from the Galactic Racing Authority." They want to establish a new competition category specifically designed to showcase cooperative technologies, mixed species teams, shared technical development, collaborative engineering projects. They're calling it the Unity Cup. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Mixed species teams? Human pilots working with alien engineers, alien pilots using human-designed ships, joint development projects that combine the best innovations from multiple civilizations. The idea is to see what can be achieved when species work together instead of just competing against each other. The concept was intriguing. Sarah had already seen the benefits of collaboration in her friendship with Veltar and the technical exchanges she had participated in with pilots from other species. Formalizing that cooperation into an official competition could produce innovations that no single species could achieve alone. "What's the timeline?" she asked. "First Unity Cup race is scheduled for next year. They want you to captain the inaugural human team, working with partners from at least 2 other species. The technical development phase would begin immediately, giving teams time to integrate their different approaches into unified designs." Sarah looked at Danny, who nodded encouragingly. The opportunity to work directly with alien engineers and pilots was exactly the kind of challenge that appealed to her innovative instincts. "I'm interested, Admiral, but I have conditions. This academy has some incredibly talented students who deserve the chance to work on cutting-edge projects. Second, all technical innovations developed for the Unity Cup must be shared freely among all participants. No proprietary advantages that can't be replicated by other teams." I expected you would say something like that. The Grey has already agreed to full technical transparency for Unity Cup competitions. The goal is to advance racing technology for everyone, not just create new competitive advantages. After the Admiral signed off, Sarah found herself staring out at the Martian landscape, her mind racing with possibilities. The Unity Cup represented something unprecedented, a formal recognition that the galaxy's different species could achieve more working together than they ever could in isolation. "So who do you want to work with?" Danny asked. "Veltar is the obvious choice for the Zephyrian partnership, but what about the third species? Their dimensional manipulation abilities combined with our cooperative engineering and Zephyrian crystalline enhancement could produce something completely revolutionary." "That's ambitious. Ethereal technology is notoriously difficult to integrate with other systems. Their phase-shifting effects tend to destabilize conventional matter, which is exactly why it would be interesting to try. If we can figure out how to make ethereal dimensional manipulation work cooperatively with our exotic matter synchronization, we might be able to create ships that exist partially outside normal spacetime while still maintaining coherent physical structure." The idea was audacious even by Sarah's standards, but she had learned that the most impossible-sounding concepts often produced the most revolutionary results. The Unity Cup would be the perfect opportunity to test the limits of interspecies collaboration. Over the following weeks, Sarah began reaching out to potential partners for her Unity Cup team. Veltar enthusiastically agreed to participate, bringing with him a team of Zephyrian engineers who were eager to explore the possibilities of multi-species collaboration. The ethereal contact proved more challenging as their species rarely engaged in direct cooperation with other civilizations. But eventually, a mysterious pilot known only as Whisper agreed to join the project, bringing with it knowledge of dimensional engineering that no other species possessed. The resulting team combined human innovation, Zephyrian crystalline mastery, and ethereal reality manipulation in a collaboration that had never been attempted before. The ship they designed together defied every conventional understanding of what racing vessels should look like or how they should function. The Unity Wind, as they named it, existed in a constant state of controlled dimensional flux, its hull shifting between solid matter and pure energy as conditions demanded. The propulsion system combined Sarah's exotic matter synchronization with Veltar's crystalline enhancement fields and Whisper's dimensional phase shifting, creating a vessel that could adapt not just its performance characteristics, but its fundamental relationship with spacetime itself. Final systems check complete, Sarah announced as she prepared for the first Unity Cup race. All cooperative integration protocols are functioning within acceptable parameters. Crystalline matrix fields synchronized with human magnetic patterns. Veltar reported from his position at the Enhanced Navigation Station. Dimensional phase coherence maintained across all operational states, Whisper added, its form flickering as it communicated through the ship's exotic interface systems. Reality integration is stable. The Unity Cup race took place in the Corona sector, a region of space where multiple stellar phenomena created challenging conditions that would test every aspect of the collaborative ship designs. 24 teams representing various combinations of galactic species had entered the competition, each bringing their own approach to interspecies technological integration. As the race began, Sarah felt a profound sense of satisfaction watching the Unity Wind respond to her commands with capabilities that exceeded anything she had achieved in her solo career. The ship didn't just perform, it evolved, adapting its configuration in real time as the three species' technologies worked together to optimize performance for whatever challenges they encountered. The race itself became secondary to the demonstration of what different species could accomplish when they combined their unique strengths. Ships that had been designed collaboratively showed capabilities that single-species vessels couldn't match, proving that cooperation really could produce results that exceeded the sum of individual contributions. Sarah's team won the first Unity Cup, but more importantly, they had proven that the galaxy's future lay not in competition between species, but in collaboration among them. The fresh pilot, who had once been dismissed as a primitive newcomer, had become the catalyst for a fundamental transformation in how galactic civilization approached technological development and interspecies cooperation. As she stood on the victory platform, accepting congratulations from representatives of dozens of different species, Sarah reflected on how far she had come from that first moment when alien pilots had scoffed at her ship's appearance. The engine that had left them stunned had become the foundation for a new era of collaborative innovation that would benefit the entire galaxy. But even as she celebrated this victory, Sarah's mind was already working on the next challenge. The universe was vast and full of mysteries that no single species could unravel alone. Humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization wasn't superior technology or exceptional piloting skill. It was the willingness to question assumptions, try new approaches, and work with others to achieve what seemed impossible. The fresh pilot had become a champion, but more importantly, she had become a bridge between species that showed the galaxy what could be accomplished when different civilizations chose cooperation over competition. And in the years that followed, that lesson would prove to be the most valuable innovation of all. The stars were vast, and there were always new horizons to explore. Sarah Chen had shown that being young and inexperienced didn't mean being inferior. It meant being unafraid to imagine possibilities that others had never considered. And in a universe full of ancient civilizations, sometimes the fresh perspective was exactly what was needed to unlock the next great leap forward. The galaxy had learned to never underestimate humanity again because they had discovered that humans didn't just adapt to the universe as they found it. They worked to make it better than it had ever been before.